Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
At Villeries Florist, we deliver the magic of flowers 7 days a week to the North Shore and South Shore in the New Orleans area. Whether it's for birthday parties, baby celebrations, Villeries provides colorful floral displays for all. With a store full of fresh-cut flowers, exotic tropical flowers, orchids, roses, and even fruit baskets, our goal is to make your vision a reality. Villeries Florist, proudly serving Louisiana since 1969.
Dave Miette Insurance Agency, 504-556-0809 or davemietteINSagency.com.
C&C Drugs is a family-owned pharmacy that's been serving Southeast Louisiana for over 50 years. Whether you need help taking care of an elderly family member, a growing child, or even a pet, C&C provides patient-centered care for your entire family. C&C Drugs, large enough to serve you, small enough to know you. Locations in Mandeville and Araby.
Good evening and welcome to another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports, live from our Pontchartrain Productions studios. I'm Eric Asher, I'm your host. Over the next hour, we're going to cover a lot of ground tonight. We'll talk a lot about what the Saints are going to do. We'll talk about the draft. We'll talk about a little bit about Alvin Kamara and also Christian McCaffrey, what's going on with that particular contract, how that affects Kamara. We'll talk a little bit about COVID-19, how it may affect the sports world going forward in terms of, again, getting games restarted. When are we going to see that? Then we're going to go heavy into the draft. We'll talk about what's happening with the Saints. We'll touch on the Pelicans as well. And then we'll give you a little update on what's happening with college basketball as the national signing period has just ended. And LSU's got a top 5 class, so we'll get into that as well. To break it down for us, one of my really good friends and a guy that does a fantastic job each and every day. The only drawback for me is we're on at the same time. I can only catch the last hour of his show. Gus Kattengell of ESPN 100.3 joined us on the program. Gus, welcome back to the show. Always good to have you, my friend.
Always a pleasure, man. Normally I'm a little closer to you.
Yes.
And having this extra distance, though, I get a really great view of almost an empty interstate.
Isn't it amazing?
Yeah.
I mean, again, that's the one thing, and I used to time this to come to the studio, leave myself about 45 minutes. Now I leave myself about 20 minutes because there's no traffic. You know, the other thing that I noticed, a few weeks ago when we had our show here, a lot of ambulances going on the broad overpass over there. But last 2 weeks, not so much. Not so much of the ambulances that are going now, which again, I'm hoping means for us that again, we're flattening the curve here and we're getting to the point where at least we're going to have a little bit sense of normalcy. But your show's rolling on and you've expanded your show a bit here, right?
Yeah, it's been interesting and just kind of changing it up a little bit in terms of, I think I'm just doing basically, I know it's a format you're very familiar with, of what we're all doing right now, right? We're all wanting sports, we're all waiting to find out what it is. It was funny when this all first started, people kept asking, what are you going to do now there's no games going on? I'm like, well, that's not really, you only talk about the games on game day. I mean, when you look at football, you have an entire week on when you're getting ready for the game. So you do talk about practice, but you talk storylines. Having a start in News Talk Sports, you kind of think of it from that perspective too. And quite honestly, you want info and you want to know how things are affected and how things are moving along forward or not. Based on it. So I've been surprised that there legitimately is new news every day on sports, whether it's Major League Baseball doing it in a biosphere. Can you have it here? The NBA, is it a cruise ship? Is it somewhere in Vegas? Are you going to have games or not? Do you do it without fans or not? And these are a lot of questions that I was actually bringing up weeks before you started hearing the newsmakers making. It's like, I'm sitting here thinking, I think I might have done it last time we were on your show. Are you going to have tailgating at an LSU game in September? Are you just going to have no fans? I mean, do you push things back? So I've already kind of started thinking from that perspective. But, man, from doctors to psychiatrists to motivational folks, I've expanded the show to that aspect of it to, just get information.
And that's what we need to do right now. That is our jobs. Again, whether we're doing it on the radio show, we're doing it here. Again, information, give people information. Sure, you want to entertain, but again, the main thing right now is to inform people. And look, I'll say it again, and I'm biased, you're biased. There's nothing better than local radio, local TV to find out what's happening here, again, in your own backyard.
It's interesting you say it. I've had this conversation with several people, and it's a point I want to make on my show all the time. I actually think this is an incredible opportunity for local journalists.
Yes.
I had Catherine Terrell on the show earlier this week, and we talked about her story where she went back all the way to the Yellow Fever days to find out how the Pelicans, a baseball team, did in covering that. And she went through reading all those reports where you got your information from the paper and the reporters there. And look, you and I talk politics every now and then, and sometimes politics has gotten absurd now. Because you put on two major national networks, what's going on right now is being completely covered different.
Right, absolutely.
I mean, completely different. It's almost like two completely different worlds.
Right.
So you don't know what to believe, and you don't know what is news and what's an agenda.
That's great.
And I've always said this, which is why I have a kind of a rule of thumb on my sports talk show. I love the national folks to give me some national perspective.
Yes.
Always call a beat writer. Always call somebody. I wanted to find out about Kenneth Murray, the Saints linebacker we're probably going to talk about, right?
Yes.
I went and got somebody from Norman who covers him at practice and after games and can tell me about his personality and stories that, he knows of him. So I think local journalists right now have a tremendous opportunity to give us information. Go find stories, because I saw this in the days when I started in television at Channel 26. When you worked the news desk, I think we got so accustomed to just grabbing a fax or now emails. And whatever that release is from that company or that person, that's true. We don't really dig into it, and that's the story. Well, let's find out. Let's find out those stories. There are great stories of maybe a bus driver that isn't delivering kids or bringing school kids right now, but maybe is bringing meals to them. So go find that out. Go find out things. 'Cause I think right now people are nervous. They're scared because we don't know. Do I need to wear a mask while I'm driving the car? We had the CEO of Terrebonne General tell us what they've learned, the medical profession, in these 2-3 weeks' time. Okay, now that they've actually seen the virus and it's in there and studying it, different aspects of how hard it is for these frontline workers to now being basically psychologists, and they're the ones holding an iPad for a loved one if they're passing away because that loved one can't be with their family. I mean, they're not trained for that. They're trained to deal with sickness. Now have to deal with the emotional aspect. So all of these things I learned from doing different elements of the show this year, and I just think it's great to present us those stories, because we got a little tired and maybe desensitized to every day pick a channel, local news. It was a murder, it was this, it was that, and now it's the virus and the deaths and a number. Okay, well, give us some info, give us some stories, give me something to be positive about or know. And I think it's bringing the importance back of writers, journalists, and people that come up with stories.
I agree 100%. I am immersed in this because I'm talking about it on a daily basis. It is our duty, to be able to have accurate information on a day in, day out basis for our audience, for those that are trying to find information. And I've got the TV on my direct TV on 4 channels that the 4 national networks. And when you say different agendas,
it's incredible.
I mean, you have to wade through it, and it's the hardest thing I find now, as opposed to maybe pre-Katrina. Or the polarization of, not to get too political, of the parties now, trying to find accurate information is very, very difficult. But you've got to be able to, again, as a journalist, as someone that is in the media, you've got to be able to go in and try to do your due diligence to find that, because it's our responsibility to be able to bring the truth to people.
And social media too. I mean, if you just follow their main headlines, it's incredible, and you don't know the truth if you don't. And I always say this, to whether it's sports too, and news and politics. Do your own information. Do your own research. Figure it out. It doesn't take long. Go ahead and see it. You have a history timeline on who said what when all this started.
And have more than one source.
I know. And look, to think that anyone's single-handedly to blame for this, man, no one was ready and prepared for this, because it's never happened before. And when you go back to local journalism, you do this, which is a great, I think that you do with your show, you hold people accountable. The local politicians, the local people that are making the decision makers. And look, I get it. There's no playbook for this, so we're learning on the fly. but you can still ask the questions and just get info. It didn't have to be gotcha. It can just be like, hey, what do you think? And have them on. Because look, we're all from our houses right now. We all have plenty of time to do it.
There's
so
no doubt.
Get them on, have them talk, and have them be more humanized. And I love that.
I definitely agree. All right, let's get started. And we're going to talk a little bit first about, again, what we believe may or may not be the future of sports.
Yeah.
And Dr. Fossey came out within the last couple of days and said, look, professional sports can go on, but it will have to go on without fans. Teams will have to be sequestered in a hotel. There'll be weekly testing. There'll be only essential personnel now that will be involved in game day, or again, getting these players ready to play. It'll be television only. The Major League Baseball has a proposal out there, and they haven't acted on it yet. Going to Arizona with the 13 spring training facilities, plus Chase Field, having Major League Baseball without fans in Arizona, getting the season off, and then trying to figure out what's going to happen down the line. The NBA, possibly going to Las Vegas. Maybe doing, again, a play-in tournament for those teams that are on the outside looking in right now, because there were about 20 games left in this season. Maybe playing the final 20, which I probably think they probably won't. But then maybe having a shortened playoff where you're not going to have 7-game series. I have 3 5-game series. Again, same deal. Testing, sequestering players, essential personnel only, TV in front of an empty stadium. Football, we don't know. Could start in September, could start in October. May start without fans, may start with fans, depending on what's going on. The training leading up to it is going to be something that's going to be an unknown, because it's never happened before. We'll get into a little deeper into that in a moment. But I, for one, believe for the country's sake, we need to restart sports. Your thoughts?
100%. And I think one of the main reasons is why is economically and financially, right? And professionally and collegiately, it's 2 different avenues and reasons for that.
Right.
But for college, you need it because it funds athletic departments.
Absolutely.
Period, end of story. And it funds the other sports that the colleges put on. So those scholarships, those things of that nature, it does. They operate under a different aspect of it, though, because that requires, like a lot of these heads of the conferences, which they spoke with Vice President Pence earlier this week about, well, we can't do that until we let students on campus. So until governors allow students to get back on campus, how do we expect students to come back and play
if it truly
sports?
is an amateur athletics and it is a student athlete,
and it's a larger number, right? I mean, even when the Saints, when you trim down the roster, it's 53. So I mean, it's not in college football or you have a lot more, and it's easier professionally from this standpoint that you have your TV deals and you have your monies from that aspect of it. I'm a Cub fan. It's crazy to think I can't see the Cubs at Wrigley. How do they make money? I'm starting to think concessions. I'm starting to think the people that throw the peanuts and do all those things. Well, their TV deals have them pretty much substantially, ready to go.
And the leagues.
But when it comes to college, most of your revenue comes from 100,000 at LSU. Even you don't have 100,000. You don't think they use that and need that. The concessions, the sponsorships, having those things. So in college, it's more important to have the fans, which is why I do think, Eric, it just makes sense. It was a question I threw out on the show. Would you rather attend or not attend? I'm with you. I'm ready to see something. I'm ready to watch it, not only for distraction, but I also think advertising dollars, all those different things.
But I think America needs the distraction right now.
I agree, 100%. And also because economically and they employ people. You can't pay staffers at the Pelicans and Saints if we don't have games. So you have to look at it from that standpoint. But when you see these games get ready to go on, and do you need fans or not? In college, man, you got to have the fans. They bring in the revenue. Those tailgaters, you think of the cities and smaller cities, whether it's Hattiesburg or went to school at Southern Miss on a game day that Saturday, the restaurants will be packed that night, all those different things. So I think we have to understand and come to terms that for about a year, it's not going, or until a vaccine, it's not going to be your normal flip a switch like it was in the past. So how do we get to the steps to where we can start slowly rolling things out?
Well, and the main thing, and you and I are talking about it every day, is testing. We have to have mass testing in this country. And until we get to the point where we're mass testing, then again, we're going to have a difficulty getting back to a sense of normalcy, which is one of the reasons why you heard Dr. Fossey mention, again, they had originally said daily test, but now they're saying weekly test.
Yeah.
And again, that is a proposal. It could go to daily tests before it's all said and done. You're talking about athletes in close proximity to each other. You're talking about a violent sport, a physical sport in football, a physical sport in basketball, but even in baseball. Again, there's no social distancing in baseball. Right. You know, I mean, it is what it is. So, again, if it means starting without fans, if it means starting with, again, we're not in the dome, or you're in a situation where, like with baseball, you're in Arizona, or the Pelicans can come back and play and they're going to be in Las Vegas for the rest of this year, well, you know what? You take what you can get at this point just to be able to get it back up and running. Do you think we'll see it anytime soon? And I'm talking about the restarting of sports, even in a capacity where there are no fans and maybe not in home stadiums.
Right. What soon?
Soon would be again by, okay, we're in April now, the end of April. Let's say the beginning of June.
Well, that's what I was going to say, because the PGA came out and said they're resuming play in June, June 11th.
Right.
So they're not going to have fans the first few tournaments.
Sure.
So we know in June there's going to be golf. So that's for sure. I know MLS is sort of looking at, you know, when they're going to get into it, whether it's May and things of that nature, and restarting. I think what's a good sign, to answer your question, I think yes. So what's a good sign is in the last 7 days, we have heard plans, right? I started the week talking about the NBA over the weekend, Brian Windhorst saying they're looking at a 25-day plan, 11-day training camp. All right. Well, if you're thinking like that, you're starting to look towards how do we get things going. So the more you see that, the more it tells me they're ready to go. They're trying to find out the best way to do it. The plan you came up with, or you spoke about, that Major League Baseball is looking into, well, they're thinking about it. So obviously that means that they think that can make that happen. And I'm with you. I think you start it, see what happens, and then you move forward. Look, the testing thing is so interesting because if you don't have symptoms, you're being told you don't need the test. So if those athletes don't have it, do you need to test them?
Well, and I will say from the research that I've done, yes, they do. Again, because again, you can be positive without showing symptoms.
Exactly.
Now they're saying again that again the symptom you could be positive without symptoms, you could be your most contagious at that point. So yes, they're going to have to be testing no matter whether you're positive or negative. And look, I don't want to get too far into this because this is the radio show and we're talking sports. But at the end of the day, again, testing would allow us to be able to quarantine those that are positive and allow the rest of the nation to go back to some sense of normalcy based on again where you are, underlying health conditions, those that are elderly, you may have to be a little bit more cautious, but the majority of people that are healthy could get back to, again, everyday life. And we won't get that way until we have mass testing. I agree with you. I think that by June, that the NBA is going to try to ramp up their playoffs, whether they're going to do a play-in tournament or what they're going to do. I don't think it's fair to the rest of the league, especially when you're that close in the West with teams that were vying for that 8th spot, to be able to say, okay, we're just taking the top 8, everybody else, forget about it. But again, maybe a playing tournament. I think baseball should start in Arizona. As we get into the summer, maybe then, there's a vaccine, if we're having mass testing, then maybe go back to the home stadiums.
Right.
And then we play it by ear on football because, again, you'd like to get the training camp and you'd like to be able to see what's going to happen, whether it's September or October, and then maybe get back to the point where maybe we can start to have fans in. And look, fans are going to choose for themselves whether they want to attend these games or not. Okay, you can open up the stadiums all you want. Based on, again, how safe they feel, will be, again, how many people will be attending those games. But, again, I think you let the market take care of itself there in terms of that.
I also think we've kind of gone through this to a certain extent, right? Adjusting our norms and moving on and doing it as sort of a normalcy. And what I mean by that is when you take a look at what terrorism has done in a lot of different aspects. I travel a lot to the airport. My routine to go on a flight has changed several times in the last 5 to 10 years.
Absolutely.
Right? So you add that, and then you add just several years ago, we would have thought it would have been ridiculous to have a clear bag to go into a Saints day, right? Women can't have big purses. I mean, we don't think about it, but when you do, just getting into a dome or a stadium, you're wanded everywhere, right? I am. When I go to Pelicans game,
of course.
I'm wanded, my bags are checked. So you do actually normalize it, and you become adjusted to it. Maybe, Eric, again, until a vaccine comes, I think this all changes once a vaccine comes,
agree.
right?
Right.
It's just like anything else.
Right,
Like the
sure.
flu it'll affect more than others, but I think when a vaccine comes and more tests, maybe I can go to my Walgreens or my Walmart
Right.
and I can buy a pack of tests to make
Right.
sure I'm okay or not.
Right. I think they'll be at the stadiums.
Exactly. Well, that's what I was going to get at. Maybe the new norm
Right.
in the meantime,
Right.
is the temperature check.
Right.
You're seeing it at other airports across
Right.
Europe where they'll stand this far away. The guy shoots it with a radar gun,
Right.
it looks like. And if you don't have, he'll just wave you through. So look, right now, you have to get to the stadium about 45 minutes to an hour before you kick off, right? Because the bag lines are a little longer because everything gets checked now, right? So maybe that is, you check the temperature, and maybe you just simply asked and have some sort of pride here, or just be an adult. If you're sick, don't go to the game.
And that needs to be from this point
But
forward.
I think that's what you're going to see, Eric.
Right.
Maybe you see wear a mask, and maybe you do see temperature checks, and maybe it is. Look, for a Super Bowl, they tell you it's a 2-hour, get there before kickoff, 2 hours before, because they're going to check everything.
Right.
Well, how badly do you want to go to that game?
Right.
I got no problem with walking up to you.
Right.
You hit me with the temperature. Am I good?
Right.
I'm good. And then
or
it's
it
on
could be,
mine.
as you mentioned, a simple test where you're tested before you go in. If you're positive, sorry, you're not going to be able to come in today, sir. And then again, at that point, it is what it is. No, I agree 100%. And I think that goes a long way in getting the country back to some normalcy. There's nothing wrong with Netflix and everything else that people are watching, or if you're embedded like I am watching what's going on with again, the news, because again, it's our profession. But again, to get back to watching games and having that as part of a distraction for the people of our country would go a long way. Let's talk a little bit about what's going on with the Saints. Christian McCaffrey, 4 years, $64 million, $16 million a year. I checked before we came on today. We still don't know what the signing bonus is. We still don't know the way this contract is structured. So again, that has not been released yet. How does that affect Alvin Kamara going forward with this team?
Did your phone go off left and right on people
yes,
saying,
absolutely.
he's gone, he's holding out,
Right.
trade him?
Trade him.
Those are my first
Right, exactly.
things.
Right.
It wasn't he's about to get paid and, poor Mickey. So I'll tell you this, I've had to talk it out on myself. A lot of times we got kids, and sometimes you have to talk through it, and we'll figure it out. Your first initial thing, we've talked about this on the show before, during the season and after the season. What was the issue last year with him? How injured was he? Was it a Mark Ingram factor? So we've been talking about Mark Ingram a lot. So you start thinking, how do the Saints approach this? What are the thought processes behind it, right? Value? Is it longevity? Is it importance? So, you can really start going down a couple of different paths. And the first things that start passing through your mind is, okay, well, if he's holding out, then do I make open the doors to maybe a trade or something of that nature? Do I want to pay him top 5 running back money? Do I want to pay him top running back money? You kind of start there. All this starts with a conversation, though.
Right.
I got to call his agent. I got to find out where you're thinking, for starters, right? But those are the thoughts you got to think of. Is he comfortable being a top 5 running back? Is he comfortable 12 to 13 mil? Because I think that would make a lot of sense. Now, I've arrived to that a little later than my initial was like, dude, if he wants to hold out, then just, running backs are a dime a dozen. You can go find those guys. And think, though, he is one of the best talented offensive players the Saints have.
True.
Post Drew Brees, he might become even more important, right?
Yeah.
Drew right now knows to go with the football,
Right.
can do those different things. But when you look at McCaffrey and you think of Saquon Barkley, probably the cat that's going to drive that up to 18 million maybe or something. They're workhorses. Because of the Saints offense, the way it's structured right now, with Drew Brees as the conductor, look, maybe he's getting looked at like Marcus Colston for a while, right? Why he never made Pro Bowls and stuff, because he didn't have the numbers. Well, he doesn't have the carries that McCaffrey has. He doesn't have the touches that he has.
That's right.
Because the ball's spread out more. That's with Drew. What after Drew? What if he becomes more of a workhorse? What if he's more like McCaffrey? So I do think there's value, and I do think I could see where he's going from, But I think at the same time, you just have to remember he is talented. You just have to figure out what happened last year. Do you chalk it up to a year that didn't or not? And McCaffrey money is McCaffrey money. Look, he was drafted higher.
Yes, he was.
And he's a workhorse, and he's gotten 1,000-yard seasons, and he's gotten 100-yard catches. I mean, he's earned it. So I think, is he going to be Jimmy Graham, or is he going to be somebody that's comfortable with being paid among one of the highest?
Right.
I think if he's okay north
Is he
of
going to be
10,
Cam Jordan, or is he going to be Jimmy Graham?
Right.
Right, because Cam Jordan is a guy that could be paid above the top defensive ends in the NFL.
And the Saints made him the highest paid tight end.
Right.
They made him the
Right,
highest
they did.
paid tight end.
They sure did.
He just wanted to be the highest paid receiver.
By receiver, which I mean, and it's the same scenario here.
Right.
Is he a running back or a receiver? I mean, they're facing the same. Now they're facing it, and they've already faced it before. And I agree with you. Is it going to come down to? And for a running back, you got to understand they know their life expectancy.
Yeah.
So they're where a defensive end can play 10, 12 years in the league. A running back might only get 3 to 5. So again, you got to make your money when you can make your money. The question is, when you have Ramczyk, when you have Lattimore, when you have all these draft choices that again you have coming up, are you in a position to be able to overpay for a running back? Especially again when in the system they have now, you can plug and play maybe some other running backs with the same skill set, and that's the big question there. The ball is also in the Saints' court now because, if Calvin Kamara holds out, he's hurt now by the new CBA. He loses the year. That means, again, he comes back next year as a restricted free agent. So the Saints have the ability to match any offer that's out there.
And you can't wipe away fines.
That's right.
He holds out, he gets fined.
Holds out, he gets fined $40,000. Okay, so $40,000 a day. So again, he's making about $2 million this year. There's no doubt he is worth more, and he's outplayed his contract. Sure. There's no doubt about that. But when you look at the fiscal sanity of this team, you say to yourself, am I better off with or without Alvin Kamara? Am I better? Am I in a position where I can, get something for him that will make me a better team and still be able to go and get a running back that can do the things he does? Maybe not as effective, but do the things he does. That's why Mickey Loomis and Sean Payton are going to be in a tough situation here. On ultimately again, where does he land? I agree with you. First call, agent. What's the parameters we're looking at here? Okay, is he looking for McCaffrey money? Is he looking to be top 5, or is he okay with again having a really good contract but giving us an opportunity to win a championship?
Yeah, and here's there's 2 elements too to think of. The Saints have always shown, Eric, that if they want somebody, they'll find a way to make it happen. Okay, so let's remember, Sean almost pats himself on the back routinely about how he found Alvin Kamara. And he believes in him and trusted him and still does that. So they've always found a way to keep people that they want. Also, just last year, we saw the Saints go out and take care of players before their deals were up. Before Michael Thomas's deal was up, no one was pressuring that Cam Jordan got a new deal, but the free agent deals of other defensive ends that were being made had a lot of people saying, man, Cam Jordan's really right. He didn't say anything, He just he tweeted emoji of some eyes rolling or something like that, but the Saints took care of him. So you'll find out how the Saints feel about Alvin Kamara. But again, the Saints have always found a way to do so, and keep in mind, you are going to have to pay the piper at some point with Drew Brees.
Yes.
There will be 1 year after Drew retires, you're going to pay $20 million.
Right.
That's happening.
That dead money's coming.
But after that, you're not going to be paying your quarterback above $20 million.
Right.
So right now you're going, oh my gosh, I can't pay him $10, $12, $13 million. But you're not paying your quarterback over 20, even if it's Taysom Hill, or if you draft a young quarterback, he'll be under a rookie contract.
Right.
And unless he's top 5, it ain't going to be that expensive.
That's true.
Right. So that's 7. He has 2. He makes 2 now. Let's say give him 10 more million. I can find that 10 million. I can find that in 2-3 years.
Right.
Right. So I think it could happen. That's why I keep saying 12, 13, 14 even. I think I could see it making sense to an extent because, again, at first I was like, man, he wants that. I'm seeing if I can get a first or second for him. But if he wants $15 million, what team is going to give you a first-round pick knowing he wants 15 then to trade him and pay that? And then secondly, Eric, after Drew Brees, how important does it become? I think it becomes even more important.
Yeah. To your point, any team that trades for him is going to have a long-term deal with him.
Right.
They're not doing a 1-year deal and giving up a high draft pick, okay? And then if you're the Saints, you have to look at it from this aspect. Am I better off with Alvin Kamara and paying him and again, doing what they're doing now, staggering the money, making the early part of the contracts, again, cap-friendly, taking the big hit later, as you mentioned, when there's not a Drew Brees, or am I better off getting draft picks and maybe players for this player that would make me better, maybe in the long run and even in the short term? I think it's a tough call because he is such a dynamic player that fits so well in this offense. But we've seen Reggie Bush traded, we've seen Mark Ingram traded. Again, we've seen running backs, especially in this offense, a dime a dozen.
Yeah.
So again, it's an interesting scenario for this coaching staff.
It just scares you when you look at, obviously, Todd Gurley, top money,
Right.
gone in 2 years.
Gone.
Le'Veon Bell, gone in his first year after getting top money. And look, that stat that I heard.
Gordon could only get $8 million a year, right?
And that stat I heard the Monday after the Super Bowl on Go Look and Wingo, man, they were like, the last 5 Super Bowl winning teams, starting running back made less than $1 million. Now, look, you can look at the game as to whether or not. I mean, the Rams with Gurley, you know, if they win, are we saying this? So, look, you could always take stats. You could always take something to make your argument.
Right. And Kamara's a hybrid. He's not just a pure running back.
What's unfathomable to me is a year ago I'm at this desk and I'm doing this show. We're not even remotely talking about this.
No.
You would have asked me to leave through the double doors right there if I would have said, well, maybe we should trade Kamara and not sign him. I mean, like, are you out of your mind?
Sure.
Right?
Right.
That's what's so crazy about it. The year that he had last year has completely changed people's thoughts for the most part. I mean, look, I know what Michael Thomas did, and I know he got the big contract, and I know he set the records. There's only one player in the New Orleans Saints that can score a touchdown every time. That's Alvin Kamara.
Right. Sure.
Michael Thomas will not outrun anybody. He may do it occasionally. I'm talking about, can he take a 5-yard slant and do that routinely? It's not his game.
Right.
He gets open, he's strong, he's physical. Alvin Kamara can score in a handoff, on a toss, on an end around. I can line him up at a slot. I can line him up outside as a wide receiver.
You put him on special teams.
You can do all those different aspects of it. So I almost have to err on the side of, okay, let's just chalk up last year to it was a bad year.
Injuries.
You know, it was injuries, it was this, it was that. And look, we talk about this all the time on our show. Nothing's more motivated than a player that's in a contract.
There's no doubt about it.
You know what? I think you roll the die if you're the Saints. I think you do because, as you mentioned, you can be a restricted free agent. I can franchise tag you, and it'll still be less than $16 million.
Right.
So knowing those three things and then add this pandemic, it doesn't behoove them to hold out because, A, you don't know when training camp's going to be. You don't know how healthy you're going to be ready to go and trade. So I think both sides bet on themselves, to be honest with you. I think he's going to bet on himself. If he has it, maybe his value gets higher.
Right.
And if the Saints like what he does, they'll take care of him. The Saints have taken care of their players.
There's no doubt. Gus Kattengell of ESPN 100.3 is our guest tonight. I'm your host, Eric Asher. We'll hear a message from our underwriters. We'll be right back. We'll continue the Saints talk. We'll get to some college basketball and some Pelicans before the show is over.
Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration has been family-owned and operated since 1989. Burkhart has energy-efficient solutions and offers brands such as Mitsubishi ductless AC units and Amana, the only manufacturer with a lifetime unit replacement warranty. Burkhart's offers maintenance bundle packages that include servicing your AC, generator, and tankless water heater. For more information on the services Burkhart's provides, visit acpromise.com. Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration, providing comfort for life.
Experiencing rough weather with a bad roof can be a nightmare. It doesn't have to be.
Suburban Roofing, because when it comes to roofing, there is a difference.
Located at 3701 Iberville Street in Mid-City is Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Open 7 days a week, Katie's offers daily specials for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Serving New Orleans cuisine such as fried shrimp platters, grilled redfish, and a fully stocked bar. And don't forget about our expanded event seating and local entertainment. Featured on the Best of Food Network's diners, drive-ins, and dives, Katie's Restaurant and Bar.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Tonight, Gus Kattengell, ESPN 100.3, is our guest. Gus, let's talk a little bit about the First of all, the situation with Drew Brees. Sean Payton said that he thought that, again, this would be his last year. You know, Brees is now at least rumored, he's going to join NBC when he's finished his career. 1 year, 2 years, what do you think?
I absolutely think because of the NBC news,
Right.
this is it.
This is it.
Yeah, and I don't think, like, he did slip. He slipped.
Right.
And he probably went, man, I shouldn't, you probably want Drew to be able to say that and whenever that is, whether it's start of training camp or what have you. But I've always thought this, Eric, and man, I've always had a hard time believing, even this past offseason, well, let me think about it. And at the Pro Bowl, give me a couple of weeks and I'll get, come on, man. They have one of those historic relationships. There is no way. You and I are friends.
Right.
And we talk before the show and after the show. We know about our lives, work environment, relationships.
Right.
I mean, we do. And we're, I wouldn't say we're Sean and Drew, but we're close friends.
Right.
So I have a hard time believing that when you spend that much time together, you have that kind of respect, you don't have an idea.
Right.
You had an idea afterwards. Now, look, I get it. Maybe when you get to that level, I have to see how my body feels and everything. But being around Sean and Drew, as long as you have and I have, you think those two guys don't ever plan 5 steps ahead?
Of course they do.
I mean, literally, right? And we've seen this from the business associations that Drew has had, tying it into restaurants, doing things like that. You've seen Sean kind of do the Hollywood. I mean, these people are thinking outside and ready and being prepared for it. And the other thing, too, that I've realized now that mine's 3.5, family starts to understand it. And look, I texted my wife earlier today. Look, even when they're not napping and you want to just step outside and breathe, one of the silver linings of this pandemic is she's been able to be home. Yeah. And she normally is out the door 7:30 and gets home at 6 with traffic because she works downtown. And Carver's down by 7:30.
Right.
So she gets an hour and a half every day. I see him most of the day with my schedule. So now she sees him every day. They go to the park for lunch. They're doing all those things. Well, if you follow Drew Brees, he's always around his kids.
Yes, he is.
It's a huge time commitment to play in the NFL. And to be at that level, and the older you get, you need to put in more time. So I think Sean didn't slip. I think it's one more ride. He tweeted it, on Instagram.
Right.
With the picture. Let's give it one more go. And with the New York Post, story that he has an NBC deal. He's going to be the color analyst for Notre Dame.
Right.
And Sunday night football analyst, Football Night in America before the game to start grooming him to do that. I think that's great. And look, we've been talking about it for years. You have to start thinking that way, which is why I think this draft is so important. We're going to get left and right people saying, we'll get into it. Do you draft now, win now, and do that? Yes, you do. But at the same time, I need to start preparing for life after Drew. So I need to be smart with my picks.
Let's go right into it. Great segue. Draft, needs.
Yeah.
I think they did a great job in free agency of giving themselves the opportunity to go BPA, best player available.
Yeah.
Now, again, we know that Sean is very aggressive on draft day. But what do you think let's talk first round first. What do you think? Where do you think they'll go? What do you think the most important need on this team that is left now?
Okay, so the most important need, it's absolutely screaming at you, is linebacker.
I agree.
It is. I mean, it is beyond screaming at you. I love Demario Davis. I hope that he signs an extension.
He
or
needs
they
to
give
sign
another
another
deal.
They should be signing him now, to be honest with
I hear you, but he's a free agent at the end of this year.
Right.
Kiki Alonso, he's coming off of an injury. Is he somebody you're going to move forward? Alex Anzalone has been injured a lot.
Right.
And I love Craig Robertson. Had him on the show here as well.
But he's getting up in age.
Okay.
Right.
That's your Saints linebacking core.
Right.
Okay. So
2 guys that are injured, 1 guy that's getting long in the tooth, and a guy you count on who's in his last year.
We saw in this division alone the importance of Luke Kuechly, Thomas Davis for the Panthers. They help build that identity, right? I mean, in that last game, I want to say 2 years ago, Kuechly and Davis had 15 tackles apiece or something. Like, how important that is. What did the Falcons go and do and change their defense a bit? Get Debo, Jones from LSU, right? David White now with the Bucks, and you saw what he can able to do. Man, whether it's Patrick Queen or whether it's Kenneth Murray, those seem to be the 2 names that are mocked around
Your preference?
where the Saints are. My preference, I like Kenneth Murray. I do.
Why?
And I think it's based probably on the interview that I had with a couple of people that cover him. more than anything else. I like his size. But more importantly, when you hear a guy say, I model myself after Kuechly, loves the film, loves to be the leadership. And again, I mentioned this at the beginning of the show, to call local reporters and the Norman Reporter, and maybe it shouldn't value that much to me.
Right.
But Oklahoma's defense wasn't very good. They gave up a lot of points. And he said when they would get whooped, he was always the last one in that locker room, and he never shied away from it, took accountability, things of that nature. Plus, a lot of people will compare him to Queen and say, well, he doesn't do as much as Queen. He wasn't asked to on that defense.
Right.
A lot of what he had to do was just basically go make the tackle, but he has the same versatility, whether or not he can cover the pass sort of like Queen. You see that athleticism.
That's right.
So you look at the NFL, I'm looking at it. Look, I'm good with either or, to be honest with you, because I think it to me, it's one of those picks that can help you now and can help you in the future.
I would agree.
You know?
I like Queen, not because it's LSU, but because you have a Demario Davis, who is a physical linebacker, who again has a lot of the skill sets that Kenneth Murray has. I got to believe that, again, he is in his prime now, Davis. They're going to try to re-sign him to a longer-term deal. They have been missing, okay, when Anzalone's not on the field, that linebacker that goes sideline to sideline. That Debo Jones-type linebacker that can cover a receiver out of the backfield or a tight end, and that's why Queen intrigues me there. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, it's a tough call. If one of those receivers, top receivers, fall to you there, even though you got an Emmanuel Sanders, you're talking about a guy that's in his 30s, two-year deal.
Right.
Again, that's tempting as well. I'm going to put you on the spot. Linebackers there, but again, a couple of those really good receivers fall. Where Saints go?
Linebacker. I think it's a bigger need this
year.
Right,
and a little more depth at the wide receiver position, right?
Absolutely. I just think it's a bigger need this year.
Right.
I mean, look, I know at least I have Sanders 2 more years. I can go try to, and I can still go get receivers later on in the draft.
Third round.
I saw one mock draft that had, what's the kid's name? Is it a Jefferson from Florida? It's a Florida receiver.
Yeah, it's Van Jefferson.
Van Jefferson, right.
Yes.
So, I mean, you can still go do that in the third. I love Clyde Edwards-Helaire in the third round if he's there.
Right.
I think it's where players are going to go and who wants them. Look, I know Philly, the Ravens, a couple of other teams, a lot of their mock drafts, a lot of their writers, they're like, man, Patrick Queen would fit great here.
Sure.
Kenneth Murray would fit great here. So it's not a bad thing to hear both of those names, which is why I'm either or. The real intriguing aspect of it is what if they're both there at 24? But go back to what the Saints normally do. They're aggressive. So if the Saints feel it's more of a Queen move that they need to do they stay at 24 and wait?
Right.
Do they wait to see if he gets past some of these teams? Look, it's been kind of almost understood that the Patriots, if a quarterback is there, they may go, man, when they won the Super Bowl, I know Brady gets a lot of credit. They won early Super Bowls with defense.
There's no doubt.
So do they go
and
for
the AFC least, right? Because, again, they weren't tested during the season.
Yeah.
That was the other part of that. Quarterback. It's a big topic. Again, do the Saints like a quarterback where they're willing to be aggressive, go up in the first round and get that quarterback? Or are they willing to wait? I think they're going to be aggressive and try to get back in the second round this year. I think they're just there is depth at the players in positions of need, and I would be surprised to see them get back into the second round. But do you think quarterback is on the radar? And then let me add this, because I've asked the question to every one of our guests. Will that quarterback be in the mode of Drew Brees or Taysom Hill?
Right. I think that's the hardest thing to try to get some people to understand. You're not going to have Drew Brees. Just accept it.
Right.
He's a Hall of Famer, and his stature, size, knowledge, he had to get to that point too, right? Drew didn't look like Drew when he started with San Diego.
Yes.
So much so they went out and got another quarterback over there, right? They didn't believe in him.
Sure.
They went and got another quarterback.
Once the injury happened, they were done.
Exactly. So it's hard to say, look, that's the guy I can do. So I have to look at and see, well, what does Sean Payton like to do? Different formations. Look, man, that Monday night game against Atlanta, I wrote down a handful of different things that stood out. I kind of covered it sort of like it just happened. First thing on the top of the list was Deuce. My goodness, could you not use a Deuce now, right? Deuce was so darn good, man.
Right.
But number 2 was, did you realize how much Drew Brees moved around in the pocket? He threw a ton rolling out to his right, rolling out to his left. So, yeah, we shouldn't be surprised what we see with Taysom, or maybe what we'll see the evolution of Taysom could sort of be. I think, and Sean Payton has told us, and when we had Brian on last time I was on the show with you, Sean Payton will tell you how he feels and what he's thinking. You just have to pay attention. I think what you see, I'm watching NFL Live earlier this week, Eric, and they're going through the quarterbacks because now, Kuiper says, look, you can get 6 possibly in that first round and all that. You know what I keep seeing in all those highlights? Mobile. Moving around. And who started to intrigue me? Look, I like Jordan Love. Everybody I keep talking to keeps telling me the Saints aren't it. Go for Fromm. Here's my thing. If we're going to move in the second round, do that. Would you move for Jalen Hurts?
Look, I like Jalen Hurts, and I think if you're going to go with a Taysom Hill type
he
quarterback,
surprised me at Oklahoma. Right?
I'm going to say that's a guy, second, third round, depending on where he is. That if you're going in that direction, that would be a nice pick for the Saints because you can still utilize him as a slash player, and until again he's ready to play the quarterback position. And what everybody has to remember is Taysom Hill's in his 30s. Let's say again he gets to start next year. Breeze is gone, or he's competing at 31. So what can you do, 32, 33? He's a guy that runs a lot, often injured at BYU. Now he's under center. So if you're going to get somebody, I think you have to have a duplicate skill set for the quarterback that you're going to have. And to me, Jalen Hurts brings that to the table. Now, again, his accuracy, maybe, again, you can question that. But, again, a good quarterback coach can do a lot. We've seen Taysom grow as a quarterback since he's been here.
And that's what I keep referring to, why I brought up. You look at Drew, a lot of it's the personality in the player, right? Drew's made himself better.
Yes.
One of the latest videos that was online earlier this week was the North Texas quarterback working out with Drew Brees, and there he is. Drew Brees made himself better. So I think what's important for me is to find a quarterback that's a self-motivator, self-starter, a guy that can do that. And you know what? The more I think about it, I'm trying to think of more difficult stories than to win a national championship as a rookie, as a freshman.
Right.
And then lose your job in the national championship game.
Right.
And then lose your job the following year.
The mental toughness, right?
Right. Go to another school, be a Heisman candidate. Man, when this tough, you're seeing it right now with the pandemic, right?
Right.
Business owners, politicians, family members.
Right.
How do you handle stress?
Right.
How do you handle
adversity?
And a negative thing, man. You won a national championship. See ya.
Right.
What have you done for me lately?
Right.
You can't throw. I need to get more dynamic on offense. Dude goes to Oklahoma and lights it up.
Yes.
He did surprise me because when he went there, I was like, that's a silly move. Why? He's not a thrower.
Yeah.
I was wrong.
No, there's no doubt about that. Let's grab a couple calls, and then I want to get into some basketball. Tom is in Metairie. Tom's up first. Tom, welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. Hey, Tom.
Hey, guys. Great show as usual.
Thank you.
I want to make a couple of comments about Alvin Kamara. So he didn't have a great year, and we still made the playoffs. That's number one. Do you think Sean Payton floats his name around to the teams during the drafts, and kind of puts out there he might want a linebacker or something, and see what kind of picks they want to give him for Kamara? We may not even know about it.
Right.
You think that kind of thing happens? I'll hang up and listen.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Tom, I think it does. Yep. And I think that goes with any player, right? Somebody calls about a player, finds out if that player is available. I think there are conversations about that. Some of those players never find that out, but I think there's definitely conversations, right?
I think that's the key before we go to the next call. Right. I think you make sure you try to keep that as on down low as possible because a lot of people can act adversely to that, right? Well, my name was on the trading block, so how do you feel about me? And all of a sudden goes, what, I am holding. I don't know. And I don't think that's the case. Sure. But again, I go back to the point of, I think you're better with him.
And look, for the right price or how the deal is structured, I think so as well. But again, then there's that life expectancy of a running back, which always seems to kind of eke in here. Greg is in Houma. Greg, welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. Hey, Greg.
Hey, guys. I'm still kind of wondering about the third-string quarterback on the Saints. We haven't really talked about are they going to go after a veteran. I'm kind of concerned because Taysom Hill is supposed to be the number 2 quarterback, and I hang up and listen.
I think it's a vet. I think even if they do draft a quarterback, they have to have a vet.
Yeah, Sean Payton said they will have 3 dressed quarterbacks. They will have one, and it's going to be somebody that can obviously come in and do that because of what the caller just said and because of what Sean just said, too. Because of how he plans on still using Taysom Hill that way.
Right.
So if he gets injured, he needs somebody that can go in and play quarterback. So it'll be a veteran quarterback, and you can find those much later as we get closer to training.
I would agree. Emil, my man Emil in River Ridge. Hey, Emil.
Hey, Eric. Hey, Gus.
What's up, man?
I'm curious. Nobody's mentioned anything about some of these diamonds in the roughs. I know I've heard the same names bandied about, but according to the positions that y'all were talking about earlier, what diamonds are rough either in the lower division college or Canadian football or whatever? What do you guys think?
Well, again, I think that's an interesting question because I think the diamonds in the rough, because of the lead into the draft, the inability to be able to interview, the inability to be able to bring them to your facility, work them out, get them in, again, you do virtually on the film room. I think some diamonds in the rough start to fall now. Where again, maybe you were in a situation where you might take a chance on a guy in the 3rd round that you felt, again, had the measurables, or maybe they lacked something, but at the same time you felt you could utilize them. I think players that have red flags, those diamonds in the rough, they start to fall. Some of them fall to the later rounds. Some of them fall to free agency as well. That's why your scouting department's really got to be on the game.
Bingo. You just mentioned it. Scouting is so important. Jeff Ireland and what the rest of those guys have done. And look, they've done a really good job of being able to find some players and stuff. I mean, Kamara is the guy we're talking about too, right? I mean, Thomas. I mean, these are guys that were not high first-round draft picks that turned out to be really good for you. I think that's not only, like you mentioned, the scouting comes in. I think you absolutely, this draft, are going to see people be more safe than perhaps in the past.
Me too.
Because I do think there are certain advantages. I still think your video and what you put on film is your calling card. That's who you are.
Yes.
Right? That's your tendencies. That's who you are. I also do think you can fall in love with a player and coaches, this is what they are. This is one of the side effects of being a coach, right? I can make him this. I can take this next. Right. But that comes from seeing you. That comes from that workout. Do you play bigger? I mean, than 5'8" and stuff. I mean, there's a couple of players that are mocked to the Saints here that they're 5'8" and so, but you see they have great athletic ability and jumping style. Well, if at the end of the day the clock is on and I'm ticking and I'm looking and all I have is measurables and I'm looking at the film, I'm like, all right, well, they play against good competition. I don't have this to go back on. Man, you remember when he was here?
Right.
Eric threw a pass, slipped out his hand, and I'm like, well, wow. And he reaches back and snags it. It's something like that can happen during a personal workout that can get a coach to go, he did something.
Or that connection, right?
Exactly.
The connection between player and coach. The trust factor. You're really going to have to trust your scouts this time around.
And there's only so much you can do with Zoom, man.
Right. I know there is. FaceTime, and that's the other part of this. I mean, again, I've been saying on my show, and I've said on this one, the NFL team with the best IT department wins the draft. No, honestly. You can't have drop-offs. You got to be able to communicate. And also, again, you got to have a plan. So, again, you got to be disciplined here. Normally, again, you're in a room with a bunch of guys talking, and they're giving their assessment, and then you're able to come up with again, in a lot of cases, a pick that is kind of just a bunch of guys coming together and putting it together. But now, man, you got guys in different places, different homes. It's a little bit different than what we've seen in the past.
That's why I also think I wonder if you're going to see a lot of draft day trades. I wonder if you're going to start to see it Tuesday, Wednesday, where I have time, we can talk, we can negotiate, we can do all those different things. Look, I still think, like, I'm a techie, man. I love technology. I still think it'll work and do those things. But look, man, we're doing our stuff remotely. There are days where the Ethernet is very slow,
I'm telling you right now,
lags a bit.
Right.
So
there's no doubt.
I just think you're going to be safer rather than sorry here because, look, these are big decisions.
Huge. They'll make or break a career.
Yeah.
No doubt. All right. I want to get to this quickly because I want to ask a question of the Pelicans. Tulane got a sharpshooter from Pitt, Ryan Murphy, is graduate transfer to Tulane. He is going to be eligible to play next year basketball immediately for Tulane. LSU, despite all the controversy around Will Wade, has another top 5 class. They bring in Sharif O'Neal, the 6'9" transfer, son of Shaquille O'Neal from UCLA. Eric Gaines, a 6'3" point guard. He's a 4-star player out of Georgia. Mawai Wilkerson is a 6'6" strong forward out of Las Vegas, who was a 4-star. That's added to the class they got in November with Cam Thomas, a 6'3" shooting guard out of Oak Hill in Virginia, who's a 5-star. His teammate, Brantley Awiro, is a 6'8" center out of Oak Hill in Virginia, a 3-star. Jalen Cook from Walker, Louisiana, is a 3-star. Kentucky has the best class in basketball right now. Tennessee is 4, LSU is 5, Arkansas is 6, Auburn is 7. All of a sudden, SEC looking pretty darn tough. Yeah. But here goes Will Wade again with another great recruiting class.
Yeah. Hey, he's got the gift of gab or something.
Something,
right?
or something.
But no, look, I think that's what's interesting too, because we were talking about football starting in time, and obviously, I do basketball.
Right.
It'll be interesting to see if college basketball and everything gets started again. It's all the way into November, right. and hopefully we have some answers by then, man. But man, I'm ready to start talking about some games.
Yeah, me too. Trenton Walford again has put his name in for the NBA draft. They're leaving a space open for him. I think he's got to come back to school. What are your thoughts?
Again, I think we were talking about with Kamara and holding this pandemic, and the longer it waits, or society waits to get back to normal and work out and be with you, I think you got to go with the sure thing, and I don't know if you can go. The draft's going to be interesting because when is the NBA draft?
We don't know.
And do you have enough to kind of make that decision, right now? So we talked about GMs and head coaches in the NFL for the draft being safe. I wonder if you're going to start to see that at least again for this year in other sports.
Do you believe, we got about 2 minutes, we got about a minute and a half left. You believe the Pelicans will be part of any playoff scenario in the NBA? Do you think there'll be a play-in series, or do you think his season's over for the Pelicans?
Man, I think what's so hard is what I've heard is anywhere between 5 to 7 games of the regular season. So then, Eric, my first question is to ask you, well, what 5 to 7?
Right.
Are we going to go with the Kings and Grizzlies being 3 or 4 of those 5 games so they can make up the ground? Or are we just taking 4 or 5 games and doing that? So that's the hardest part. I do think they want to get back. I do think they want to do that. I still think there'll be that, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's some sort of play-in situation.
I think the play-in is the best way to do it. It's the fairest way to do it.
What's the hardest to decide? Okay, out of those 5 games or 7 games, again, those are odd numbers.
Yes.
Is it more home or road games?
Right.
And where are we playing?
Right.
I
think they'll be in Las Vegas, and I think they'll be without fans. But I do think a play-in tournament would be good for television. Right. It would be good for the league at that point, and you might have some wild cards getting in.
I just don't know if 5 or 7 games is enough to make up the ground.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. Gus, one more time, tell the folks about the radio show.
Yeah, each and every afternoon, 12 to 3 on ESPN New Orleans. Give us a check out and tweet at us at ESPN Radio NOLA, and myself at GCat_17. It's always a pleasure to hang out with you, man.
Thanks, my friend.
Beautiful sunset behind
it's
you,
awesome.
So
No
relaxing.
doubt. It really is. Thanks so much for tuning in. Remember, there's a rebroadcast of this program each and every Friday night right here on WLAE-TV. Also, Friday night, 9 o'clock on Pelican Sports Television. That is statewide. You can catch me on the radio, Sports 1280, 101.1 FM HD2, and the iHeartRadio app. That is noon to 2 weekdays. Listen live, download the podcast at ericasher.com. Also, all the previous episodes of this program can be seen at ericasher.com. Also want to thank our fantastic underwriters who continue to support this show. Thank you very much. Also, to our WLE production staff and the fantastic job that they do. Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, Naila Jones, Alex Chacon, William Hill, our director. And thank you, audience, for continuing to tune into this program. Thank you so much for listening to Gus's radio show, my radio show. We appreciate that, and all of our sponsors as well that keep our shows going. Thank you for watching. Stay safe. We'll see you next week for another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports.